Bink, buttons pressed, live again 2 days in a row. We are the Nerd Ledger. Yeah. Hello, I'm Cage. That's Chair. Say hi.
Chair. Yep. Hi. Chair.
Yeah. So yesterday we streamed, obviously. So the
Yep.
last podcast that was out was about the Bad Batch season 3, episodes 3 and 4. That's what we talked about. But today we are going to talk about Dune Part 2.
Yep.
Um,
Dune Part
yeah,
Two.
we saw it.
Probably a
And
shorter cast today because it's just the movie and I don't know. There
yeah,
was a lot, but there was also a little. You know what I mean?
yeah. Hold on, I'm updating the stream title because I didn't do that. I don't want people to think we're still talking about the same thing.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, Spoiler warning. There we go. I mean, it's taken a while to type, but there we go. Done. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So we will be spoiling if you haven't seen the movie yet. But it came out last week, so I'm sure a lot of the people who really wanted to see it and want to hear people's reviews have seen it. So,
Mm.
yeah. We talked a little bit yesterday about you and your history with Dune.
Yep.
You've read
Read.
all the books.
Yeah. Even the weird ones that nobody talks about, like Chapter House and Heretics. Um. You know,
Aren't there also some books that were written by his
his son.
son?
Yes. Yes. The Butlerian Jihad, which is explaining why there's no robots present in this, despite them having super advanced technology. Spoiler warning, but it's because they went on a crusade against the robots and they killed them all. Because they were afraid of thinking machines. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's why there's no robots in the Dune universe at all. And that's how the Mentats came around, who are like human computers essentially. And yeah, so yep.
Yeah.
And they're not very well received is another thing to bring up.
What, the books? Like
Yeah,
his
a
son's
lot of the
books or the
fans.
books in general?
Yeah, his son's books. The fans, a lot of the fans that I know on social media, well, they hate everything, but they specifically they'll talk about how good the Dune books are, but they'll savage his version of them.
Yeah, I mean, as far as what I've seen, like a lot of people do regard like at least Dune and some of its sequels as like very complex kind of stories. And I would say that based on some of the things I've read about the books, they get a bit probably convoluted in a lot of ways. Um, and I think that's why in the adaptation in these two movies, Denis Villeneuve has strived to kind of simplify and adapt it better for an audience who hasn't read the books and also an audience who doesn't want to spend hours upon hours dealing with the political backwash systems and all these structural elements of like organizations and people and groups and all these things that make this story very convoluted or complex, I guess is another way to say that.
Yeah.
um and you also, so I never watched the 1984 Dune. You watched it, right? You like it or don't like it?
Yeah, I did. Uh, it's a trip. I don't like it, but it's a trip. That's the only way I can describe it.
Okay.
I'm not like the biggest fan. Like, if you're gonna twist my arm to watch like an old shitty movie, I'd rather pick something else. But if you wanted to watch it, I'll watch it with you. I just gotta be high. Because no, I have watched it like 2 or 3 times, so I'm only watching it again to have a good time.
I
Honestly.
remember as a kid, I remember my dad watching it, but I didn't watch it. Um,
Mm,
I only knew Dune was the movie with the desert and the sandworms.
yeah.
That's what I knew about Dune. So, um, but yeah, I don't know if we ever reviewed part one of Dune. I think we did. I think your ultimate takeaway was it's a good sci-fi movie, but it's not a great Dune movie.
Mm,
Is that what you said?
yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, I'm a little. Yeah.
But I think part two maybe you feel a little differently, right? Like,
Yeah.
uh,
So the first Dune movie, like it was a great science fiction movie, so I think it was a great movie. But also from the perspective of someone who really loved Dune, it wasn't a very good Dune movie. But that is what it is. Like in the way the Harry Potter movies aren't really good Harry Potter book movies, because they cut out like a lot of content, like a lot.
well,
Like there's a lot of shit they cut.
the first two are very good Harry Potter movies, but not very good movies.
Yeah, but they still cut a lot of stuff that people really love. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
so that's like a problem. And the first Doom movie did that. They didn't introduce a lot of major characters. They didn't introduce other like certain people. They didn't introduce like the Spacer Guild like I really wanted them to. They don't really even in this one they don't really talk about why there's a lot of things they don't discuss that are like kind of like motivational for why everything's going on.
Well, even in
And
this
it's just
one, I mean, elements from the first movie are completely absent, right?
yeah
Like the Mentat is not there in this one, right?
mm,
Kynes is not there in this one, and I think obviously that's deliberate because um, in in the book, those characters play very specific roles that would make telling this story way more complicated.
yeah
Um, and so the biggest like changes in Dune Part Two that are widely talked about by the director and have like a lot of press about is the changes to Jessica and Chani, right?
yeah absolutely
Um,
completely different. Like Chani was essentially a cheerleader for Paul in the books. And this one, she's like, almost an entirely different character.
yeah, and I think it makes some sense. So I did mention this briefly yesterday, but for people who didn't hear it, essentially Dennis Villeneuve, the director of Dune and Dune Part Two, he said that he changed Chani's character in a lot of ways to better represent Paul to the audience as not the hero that people try to perceive him as, because
Yeah.
Frank Herbert's initial or his actual intention was not for Paul to be a hero, but more of an anti-hero, and that's why he ended up writing Dune Messiah, because after Dune, people had viewed him as the hero.
Mm.
And Dennis Villeneuve said the way that he wanted to, make it more clear that Paul was an anti-hero is through Chani, through her essentially uh, being very opposed to his, religious ideological kind of whatever he's becoming because of these Benny Gesserit rumors and all this shit that they spread around, right? Like,
Mm.
because correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is in the book, like, she is also herself kind of a religious figure or set up to be some kind of religious figure. Is that right or wrong?
For the Fremen he is. For the rest of the universe, he's just kind of the guy who's trying to seize power.
No, but Chani,
Um.
right?
Oh yeah.
Like, isn't she like more or less like a Fremen princess?
No.
I read something that suggested that she was like, because like in the book
In the
she's
beginning
like
of the
the
books,
granddaughter of Kynes.
Paul kills that one guy, and then she gets him like as his like wife because she killed that one dude in single because he killed that one dude in single combat. And
Uh,
he had like her sons are really important to him. Like he already has kids in the books, and like they're really important to him. Like he like kind of semi adopts them, and like they become important as he like wages the war and stuff like that on Arrakis. And it's
Interesting.
just a completely different arc, like totally 100% different, right?
Well, he
Like
does
this
he also have kids with her like later?
they do later in Children of Dune. That's what Children of Dune essentially is about Paul and Chani's children. And Dune Messiah, like, Chani's a little upset because like, he marries Princess Irulian.
Yeah.
He and he essentially says that she by self-admission that she's been turned this is in the book that she's been turned into kind of a cuck because he won't have sex with her.
Hmm.
And because yeah, so it's like a whole different thing, right? But China was still upset at the time because angry woman, something like that, and yeah,
Sure. Yeah, I mean that was one of the parts of
She
the.
was much less complicated in the books. There's no doubt about that. Like in this one, I like it. Like I like her changes. I think it's important to
Yeah,
have that there, and there's nothing wrong with it. But
yeah. As
yeah,
someone who hasn't like gotten that far in the book, I think that as a movie it all works very well.
yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
like I
Yeah.
mean, I guess cutting to the chase. I mean, I thought the movie was very good. I thought it, like it had the scale and it had the feeling of a major movie that you haven't really had for a while.
Mm,
Especially with like a lot of adaptations, right? Like you don't always get this feeling that something is massive, and Dune feels massive.
yeah.
So I really
It
enjoyed the
is this the
movie,
scale
and
of things like they are the like if you look at like the maps like he's the emperor of the known universe. The thing is like it's just like habitable planets aren't very like there's not a whole lot of them across like the Dune universe and stuff like that. And they go into like the Chome company contracts, which are like the actual like corporations and businesses on your planets that they get permission to operate off world, and the Emperor controls all of that stuff. And there's a whole lot of stuff they go into the books. They just don't go into the movies. Like this is something, and we're doing like a spoiler warning already, so we're kind of already all over the place. But like for me, the biggest flaw is like they never explain like why Arrakis is important. Like they say it just seems like they're fighting over the spice because it's like worth money, not because it's like essential for space travel, which it is. It is absolutely essential for space travel. So
yeah,
like
and I don't remember if they mentioned that in the first movie or not, but
I think they brought it up briefly, but I don't know. I
yeah,
just wish
but
they
but
would have done.
not enough for people to actually, well, not enough at least for me to have
Yeah,
put that in my memory, because my impression has always been that just spice is worth money, and that's
yeah,
like it's like oil, which I guess it
yeah,
is like oil because you do need oil for travel.
for things. Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I guess that makes sense. Like obviously it's worth money because it's utilized for something incredibly important. So it's not worth money
Yeah,
just because it exists. So I guess that makes sense. But like you don't always think about things that deep, or like not a lot of people do. So
yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's not. I mean, it's certainly not reiterated in this movie that it's used for space travel, right?
No, I think
So
it's brought up maybe like in the first book, maybe in the first novel, in the first movie. I need to go back and watch that. Maybe like
yeah,
when that computer brings it up and they try not to make it a, such a big thing. I don't know. But it's just very. They seem to be like the main motivation, the reason like the Emperor is so afraid of like afraid of Paul is because like he'll tell the other great houses that the Harkonnens, but he helped them like the Harkonnens betray the Atreides, and then like that's what the Emperor's afraid of. And like in the books he's more afraid of like losing control of Arrakis to some like rebel Fremen who like
yeah.
make space like getting there almost impossible, and then they lose access to spice. And like it's actually the space guilds are like really pressing the Emperor to act because they like they're like that's like the real power in the Dune universe is like the spacer guilds and stuff like that. Like they're the real like they're basically like the Illuminati in the first like three books.
Mhm. But I
And
think there
like
is also in the book some fear that like they'll like the rest of the houses will find out about the emperor's like being involved in the death of uh of Paul's dad, right?
yeah,
Because
there's
because
some of that there, but it's more because he's being pressed by the space guild to do all this stuff, which is again is I think a really cool plot point that I wish that they would have like gone with in this movie. But it just more seems like the emperor's kind of grasping at straws and like just not making very wise decisions and stuff.
yeah, well it's more I think like the way the movie justifies it is like the Bene Gesserit like had played a major role in like doing all that, right? Like they
Yeah.
convinced him that like there was
Well, the
that
Bene
was the
Gesserit
threat.
like work. The Bene Gesserit like work for the Spacers Guild, like in their own really
Uh,
specific way. While they're because like the Bene Gesserit need spice too to like do their weird shit. So
mm,
they like they're the Spicer Guild. The Space Guilds control all the spice. Like he who controls the spice controls the universe. Like that's a really famous line. Like the spice must flow.
yeah,
That was kind of like a tagline and wasn't present at all in these movies, which is something I kind of don't like. But it's whatever because the movies are still really entertaining. Obviously, I want to go see it a second time. I probably am going to see it a second time.
yeah,
Um, But it's just there's a lot of things here that I wish they would have had, but they just didn't have. I don't know.
yeah. I
But it
mean,
was also really entertaining to watch. Like that's another thing. Like all that stuff on Gaiety Prime is really cool. Like those fireworks, those like gelatin fireworks or whatever the fuck those were really really cool. The lava lamp fireworks.
Hmm.
Remember? Do you remember those?
Uh,
The
yes.
fireworks on Gaiety
That's the
Prime that like were
that's
like
the
gel.
that's the black and white planet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Where everyone's like super evil and industrial and stuff like that. You know the fireworks they had.
Yeah.
Those are really cool. Those are really cool looking. So.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then yeah, the other major change was to Lady Jessica. Apparently, so I don't know how this works. I really would need to rewatch the movie to make sure that it internally it makes sense. But like
Mhm.
in the book, my understanding is like Paul is with the Fremen for quite a long time, and she's
Yeah,
like
a couple
given
years.
given birth and like had the sister.
Had
Um,
Alia. Yep, Alia was very important at the end of Dune because she's like a mastermind, like she is like in this movie in her own special way. Because her mom like drank this super drug and got high as fuck, and then Alia got high as fuck and like awoken in the womb, and she's called an abomination because that's just like the word they use to describe those things.
yeah,
So,
but I don't know in this movie if they ever specify how long Paul has been with them. Um,
mm,
but because like it seems like at points some time has passed. Like bro didn't learn how to fucking ride a worm in like 3 days.
yeah,
Like there has to be time passing, and like Jessica traveling from being with the Fremen in the north or like and all the way to the south, like that couldn't have taken like a day, right? Like that
yep,
takes a lot of time, doesn't it? I don't know,
yeah.
but
Yeah, for sure.
like
Like they always play loosey goosey with time in movies though. Like the Lord of the Rings, right? Like it was like a 10 year the 10 years they cut out between like frickin' Gandalf leaving the Shire and stuff like that. And
well,
yeah,
I mean it was 20 years, but yeah.
20 years exactly. They cut things out. Okay, so they cut time in movies just works differently than it does in books because you have that freedom.
Yeah, but you can make that work in an adaptation, right? But like, I don't know if it works within this adaptation's internal frame, right? Like you have to think like in the time that Paul was with the Fremen, was it less than 8 months or whatever? Like would she not have given birth at some point? But I guess maybe it makes sense if you assume he was there for like a total like 6 months, but like it takes a long time to gain people's trust, and like obviously there are like a lot of like very what's the word, superstitious like Fremen that are more like from the south, right? Where like the rumors of like the Jesus, I'm gonna say so many things wrong. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like what is it called? The Liaison Al Gaib. Is that right?
Yeah.
Holy
Well,
shit.
the Kwisatz Haderach and all that stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of complicated names in this for sure.
But aren't those the same thing, or are they different thing?
It's kind of like it's kind
It,
of the same, but it's also kind of
is
different.
the
I don't know what you
Quasi
call it.
Haderach and the Liaison Al Gaib the same or different
So the
people?
Lisan al Ghalib is how the Fremen describe the savior, and the Kwisatz Haderach is the savior that the ladies, what do they call?
The
I
Bene
keep forgetting
Gesserit?
the freaking the Bene Gesserit are looking for. They're looking for some sort of genetic like superhuman, essentially, that can like do
But
psychic powers and stuff.
but Paul is both of those, right?
Oh, yeah,
Okay, cool. So more, they're the same thing. I gotcha. Okay, but yeah, some of the Fremen are more apt to believe, like
mm,
Stilgar, right, and like others. And then there are other Fremen who are much less likely to believe, like Shawnee doesn't really believe. But you're saying in the books like she's full on like she's like a puppy dog, right?
yeah. She's like a cheerleader for Paul.
All
She's like
right,
always supporting his decisions until like she marries Drew. He was like, I'm gonna marry Aurelia, and I'm gonna like do all this stuff, and yeah.
interesting. But yeah,
And it
like
may not be exactly like that, but I do just remember her being a lot more supportive than Paul and then this and like the whole, and they all believe. That's the thing. Like they all believe he's like a savior. There is no like convince,
well,
you know.
I think so. Based on where I am in the book, where I'm
Mm,
at the point in the book where he's talking with Kynes, like after he's like escaped or whatever, and like Duncan Idaho's about to die, and and like he's like talking to Kynes and he's like convincing him why like they should help each other, and like he is very sure of himself. Paul is very sure of himself as like the new sire, and like fucking he knows like he's gonna convince them that he is this religious figure. You know what I'm saying? At least that's what it seems like to me. I don't know if like in the book it continues that way, but in the movie he's definitely not sure of that. Like he
Well, in the book, he just gets high as fuck and he starts seeing like the future and stuff like that. And then
well,
some
that
stuff
happens here
happens in the
too, but he still pushes back against the idea that he is this thing. Like he is fully in the camp of, I know the Bene Gesserit made these rumors and like they planted these seeds, but this person, this Quasi Haderach, does not exist. And if he did, I'm not him. Like that's what it seems like to me watching the movie. Like Paul is like, I know all of this is bullshit. I know you guys need to believe it for you to trust me and take me along and take me in so that eventually I can actually get my revenge and do what I need to do to avenge my father. But like, I'm not that. Like that's what he tells Chani pretty much. Like he's like, I'm not that.
Yeah.
But then after he drinks like the juice of life or some shit, like bro just changes. He's just like, bro, I am him. I am him. You guys need to listen to me because I will lead you to salvation.
Yeah, he got high as fuck.
And so
changed him forever. Forever.
Is that really what it is? Like he just
like,
drinks the fucking waters of life or some shit, and like he's just different now.
Yeah, he becomes a lot more psychic, magical. Like he's psychic and he can really see the future. Like and he can like do like a bunch of stuff.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, I like the seeing the future thing, but like, so in the, I've read, so from what I've read in the book, there's like the passages from Princess Aurelian or whatever, like at the beginning of a lot of chapters, and like there was like one where she's talking about like Paul and his ability to see the future and how like it like being able to see the future doesn't really mean much because like you can see things in real life, but like if you're in like a cavern, right, you can't see beyond what's in front of you, like kind of thing, right? Like there could be something else, but like you're not seeing it, you're only seeing something. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? And then in the adaptation, right, like Paul is saying like if he goes south, all these people are gonna die, and that could still happen. We don't know, but like it didn't happen here. But then he also saw like the future of like Arrakis being a paradise, and like he saw like his sister like fully grown, which was kind of interesting. And so yeah, it's I like the visions thing, but I don't know where I was going with that, to be honest.
Yeah, they definitely could. I feel like they could have been stronger on the visions this time than they were, like in this movie than they were than they were in general.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Is like Paul's like a crazy switch up, like because this when he was like consuming the spice or whatever, like he was already starting to have some visions, right? But then like once he like takes what is it called? The water of life, is that what it's called?
The water of life.
Yep. Like once he drinks that shit, like he switches up like crazy. But then like he's still telling Chani like, "Yo, I love you, and I'm always gonna love you," and like, yeah, I'm reassuring you. But like he just switches up, and then she switches up. She's like, "Bruh, why are you doing all this shit? Why are you embodying this religious character and like manipulating all these people and shit?" Like I thought she knew. I thought she was on board with all that from the start, and even understood that like he might have to make choices as this leader that she doesn't like. I thought she was kind of on board with that, but then like she very clearly wasn't on board with it. And like there's not a problem with that. Like people think that all the time. They're like, "Oh, if this happens, I can handle it. I'm on board." And then it happens and you're like, "Bro, I didn't sign up for this shit."
Yep.
And so I feel like that's kind of like what Chani did. She was just like, "Yeah, I'm I love you and all this shit." And then like once he's like, "Yo, I'm gonna murder my cousin," who I just found out is my cousin, which is also a change because I'm pretty sure in the book like he knows for a lot longer. Like he knew way
Uh,
before that like he was like his mom was a Harkonnen, right?
what I really need to do is just go back and read the first Dune book and rewatch the
The
first
first
Dune
movie.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I haven't, and again, I could be completely wrong about all these things in the book. Maybe Chani was like more aggressive towards Paul. I don't remember that specifically. But I really do think that she was very supportive of him from what I can recall, and I just remember her like not being that really that important until the second Dune book.
Well,
Where
in
basically
this,
he's just like Chani, please love me. I've seen our kids are needed to like rule the universe together or whatever like that.
yeah, but in this, in part two, in the movie adaptation, like she is still very supportive up until like he is like, I'm gonna take the hand of your daughter, Emperor, and then all
Yeah,
this. Well, I mean, okay, she not until that point. So when he's like talking to all the Fremen in the South, like as their new leader, like she starts speaking up. She's like, "Yo, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck is happening? Like, you guys are
yeah,
all mentally brain damaged, you know."
yeah,
Um, so like that was like the first like real well. So I guess the catalyst for all of this is when Paul drinks the water of life, right? Like not only does he change, but like she's really fucking pissed off about that shit too. And then she's like
yeah,
manipulated into like crying to like save his life. Like
yeah,
and they do a lot of work in the movies to like really emphasize the importance of water and like you know people shouldn't waste their water kind of thing, but like they
yeah.
they also don't do that as much as they do in the books, right? Like in the books, like water is everything.
Yep.
And to the point where
Yeah, no,
like
absolutely. Like it's super duper important. Like they're always thirsty all the time. Like they're always a little thirsty and like, they're taking sips of water all the time and there's tons of stuff that for sure it doesn't seem as serious as it does here.
yeah,
Like
well
in the movie.
something sorry, go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say something that like really stuck out to me while reading the book, and again, I'm only part way through it, but like, is when the Mentat is talking with one of the Fremen leaders, and like the Mentat has like a bunch of injured men, and like there's like this whole dialogue about like essentially the Fremen is like, bruh, kill your people that are wounded and take their water, like more or
Yeah.
less, and like the Mentat isn't understanding that because like the way it's worded, he's like he was asking about like a water like I don't know, he's saying something about water. He's like because the guy was like, hey, can you help our wounded, and he was like, you know something about a water debt or some shit. I don't fucking remember, but I remember like he was pretty much saying like, bro, you have wounded people. Water is more important than saving their lives. They can't help you. They will slow you down. They are fucked. Kill them. Take their
Mm,
water because it benefits everybody, right? Like
yeah.
like their water is everybody's water in like the tribe, right? Like that's
Yeah.
how they view everything. And so, it's in that world, in that reality, water is everything, and like you play by a different set of rules than in in a high society, right?
Yeah.
The other like major difference that comes to mind is like uh, the Fremen, they have more of a purpose. It seems to me in the books. Like in the books, like their goal is to restore Arrakis to a paradise.
Yeah.
Whereas like in the movie, it seems like their goal is to survive and not so much to like to me they're not talking about paradise. I mean, obviously like they believe that Paul or the Lizan Al Gaib can restore Arrakis to a paradise, but like it's not like they're living their lives in hope that one day he'll show up and do it. Like they're living their lives to survive. At least that's the impression I get. And again, I think both of us agree that we probably need to
They're just
watch
like a
the movies a couple
yeah,
more
watch
times.
and
But
read. Watch and read, and I just also think that like they're like very deeply religious in the a lot more deeply religious in the books than they are in this movie. Even like there is no discerning on like the major religion and whatnot. Paul's like blessed or whatever. He's just a guy. He's a special guy.
yeah, and that's not uncommon in genres like this, right? I mean, like Bro, Luke
Yeah.
Skywalker is inherently special. Harry Potter is inherently special. Aragorn is inherently special, right? Like this is just how a lot of these characters are, and they don't need to be justifiably special. Like they are inherently special,
Yeah.
and that's not uncommon in real life either. There are some people that are just more more adept to things than others. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so in Paul as a character is an interesting thing to study because um, like he's the only male who can do these things, right? Because like the Bene Gesserit have like the voice and these visions and these abilities and all this shit, and it's like they you have to be able to withstand like crazy pain to do these things, and even like the water of life, right? No man is supposed to be able to survive that, and Paul
Yep.
survives all of it. He has the visions, he has the voice, he has the powers, he can do all these things, and I wonder if that's because is this like a because of his heritage kind of thing? Because like,
It's because he's the Quizak Haderach. That's the thing. Like that's what it comes down to is that he is a special. Like
or
that's
is
kind
he
of
the
the problem I
quasi
had with.
Haderach because he can do those
No,
things?
he's just special. Like that's what it comes down to. You have to remember that Frank Herbert wasn't exactly like, the top tier like world building writer and stuff like that.
Right.
He could write at scale because he had a really deep understanding of math. Like in a lot of the ways, like he really reminds me of he wrote I, Robot. Isaac Asimov, who's like, one of the considered one of the founding fathers of modern science fiction, and potentially he was the one who first invented like, the modern iteration of what we know as a robot.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or an android or stuff like that. He was like one of the first people to be writing about like, great societies in space to use robots and stuff like that to do a bunch of labor for them. Um, but to him, a lot Frank Herbert, I think I remember one time that read that, because in the books that Isaac Asimov wrote, humanity had like this great, glorious, peaceful, ultra awesome future, and I think Frank Herbert also kind of wrote that as like a response to it. But also, both the other thing we have to remember is both these guys were like mathematicians, so you know deep emotions, like really distinct human relationships. Their books are written in a very logical way. That's why it's called science fiction.
Yeah.
And it's just not the depth you're looking for. Why is Paul special? He's just special. That's how it is in the books. He's the genetic like match that the Bene Gesserit have been looking for 90 generations. He is like the one. And then like, in Dune Messiah and in Children of Dune, he essentially kind of rejects being the one. We'll see how that goes if they're probably going to make another one because this one made so much
Okay.
money.
Well, that makes sense, right?
Uh,
Because I think there are the seeds of that then here early on because he also rejects that idea here before he drinks the water of life, right?
yeah,
Um, so, but yeah, overall, I mean, just the movie is definitely, I think, more action packed than the first movie. Like it
hmm,
had great pacing, it had a good tone. It was a long movie. It was like 2 hours and 45 minutes, but it didn't feel that long.
yeah,
It was interesting. The concept, the visuals, the cinematography all looked very good. The costume design was all very impressive. Um, I mean, I just thoroughly enjoyed the movie. It was good to see like how the Fremen operate, um, and they do operate. I think that it is very true to the books, like how they operate. Because in the books, like they're very nonchalant about how skilled they are. They're like, oh yeah, the Emperor's men. What are they called? Like Saudercore? Is that how you say it?
yeah,
Like he was like, oh yeah, they're very good fighters. We lost two when we fought like a whole battalion, and everybody's like, what the fuck, bro? Like, dude, like you only lost two people? Like, holy shit! Like
yeah.
the Fremen are like crazy skilled fighters, right?
Crazy warriors, like that's the thing. Like in the Sardaukar in the books, like they're from the Imperial prison planet. They're like prison, like the prison planet is like they literally just dump prisoners there and then they survive. And then like they come and pick up people sometimes. And if they fight and kill their way to the ship, then they get to go on and be an Imperial guardsman.
Mm,
And like so that's why like they're the great fighters because that's where they come from.
yeah.
Also, the Imperial prison planet is like high gravity, so they're extra duper strong. They're super duper strong.
Mm. Yeah, but like, bro, like crazy action. I mean, just seeing like how they fight, how they strategize, and then it was all very cool. And then obviously you have like the secondary story about the Harkonnens and young Fade Rotha, and I didn't really understand. So this is a point of contention for me, and you can tell me
Mm,
where I'm wrong here because I probably am. But when we first meet Fade Rotha, right? He fights like these guys in this arena, and like they're like prisoners, right? But like
yeah,
they're drugged, and
yeah,
there's only one who isn't drugged, and he like struggles to fight the guy who's not drugged.
yeah,
And that gave me an impression that they drug him because this guy is not a good fighter, and they want to like give the impression that he's very skilled and like, like he's like this great warrior, but he's really not. That was my understanding of it. But then he fights Paul at the end, and he is a very skilled fighter.
yeah.
So why do they need to drug the prisoners? Like, it's just like because of the risk that like he might get injured,
Yeah,
or
because of the risk. That's why they did that.
hmm,
That's like, they're just kind of like it speaks to the Harkonnens are kind of like in their own way cowards and like, in that way it seems pretty cool because he seems like he wants an actual honest fight in that book. Like, in that moment.
yeah, okay. Well, but yeah, Austin Butler played Fade Rotha, and I thought he did a very nice job. I thought he was very good. I
Yeah.
didn't watch the 1984 version. Was Sting any good as Fade Rotha?
I mean, he was alright. They're all just crazy. Like the Harkonnens are so crazy. Like that's the thing, and the other books are just like insane.
Oh, yeah, I mean
Uh,
he gave that impression that he's very insane, and he put his hand in
yeah,
the box and apparently enjoyed it.
yeah.
Did he enjoy it? Do you know? Did he enjoy it? They
I
said he
can't
loves
remember
pain, but
most. I remember he got introduced really early in the books, and then it's like he's like super evil and he's sadistic, and like and the freaking they all just do fucked up shit all the time. Yeah,
yeah. Well,
almost it's crazy.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I got that impression, but I didn't expect him to Dwight. I didn't expect that.
Yeah,
I'm sure you did because you read the books.
yeah, I did.
But
That was
yeah,
Paul's like big. Like I just think that they were supposed to like again simple. We have to think about the simply right. Faye is just like supposed to be kind of this semi like antagonist for Paul. Like he's like the opposite of Paul. So
yeah,
like Paul's got to kill him to like hold up his position of like where he is. Like
mm,
that's how I think that's how like Frank Herbert in his own way like describes you know like Paul like becoming better than Fade Retha to like the yeah the viewer
yeah.
the reader.
The audience.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. I mean, did so Paul ends up like getting stabbed,
Yep.
but clearly it doesn't affect him somehow. I mean, it does affect him, but like it doesn't. It's like he doesn't go down or anything. Like he's fine. Like he just keeps fighting and then defeats defeats Fade Rotha, and then he's like, "Emperor, kiss my ring, bitch,
Yep.
and I will take your daughter as my wife." And then he's like, "Chani, I will love you until my last breath."
Yep.
And she's just like, "Go fuck yourself," and
Pretty
she
much. Yep.
leaves. Um, but we know she'll be back because they have to have a kid. They have to because I'm pretty sure his kid
Yeah.
is very important.
Yeah. He becomes the centerpiece of God Emperor.
So, yeah, I mean, they definitely set up for the third movie. And honestly, I'm very looking forward to it because, yeah, I mean, just like to me the closest comparison to the Dune movies so far is the Lord of the Rings movies, right? Like just like very solid adaptations that do make a lot of changes,
Yep.
but the changes overall for the most part work. I mean, they're massive undertakings. They're long. And both are going to end up being trilogies. And I think in 5 to 10 years, if not sooner, Dune will be highly regarded as a brilliant adaptation of Frank Herbert's work.
Yep. Maybe there'll
So
be a bunch of super fans.
they absolutely will. No doubt. I mean, even Lord of the Rings, right? Like, I mean, Lord of the Rings has a lot of crazy fans, but you don't see a lot of fans. Like, you don't see a lot of Lord of the Rings merchandise out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't see
Yep.
people wearing like Lord of the Rings stuff that much, even though a lot of it exists. Like, I mean, Star Wars you see, comic book stuff you see, but I don't see a lot of Lord of the Rings merchandise. Like, when I'm walking around, I don't see people with Lord of the Rings shit. Like, most people don't even know, like, the Tree of Gondor. You know what I'm saying? Like, most people don't
Yep.
recognize that. Everybody recognizes this. Everybody knows fucking Deathly Hallows from Harry Potter, but nobody
Yep.
knows what the Tree of Gondor is, so I don't know. But again, I mean, it doesn't take away the fact that the Lord of the Rings trilogy was an incredible success, blockbuster, award, everything. Like the movie was, that trilogy made a bunch of money. It got a bunch of awards, and people still talk about it. So, but yeah, so my wife asked me when I came home from Dune Part Two what I would grade it,
Mm.
and I didn't give her an answer because her scale and my scale are completely different. Like, I said something was a 7 out of 10 once, and she said, "Oh, so it's average." I'm like, bruh, that's not how you grade movies. Like, 7 out of 10 is good, is a good score. Like, 6 out of 10 is like average, right? To me, like, I know it's like a D in school, but like that's not how you grade movies. Like, bruh, a movie's not graded on that scale. So, at least to me, right? Maybe my scale
Mm.
is wrong. I don't know. But I think I'd give Dune Part Two like a solid like 8.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I definitely give it around 8, 9, around that area.
Yeah. So if you haven't seen it, you should go see it. And if you have seen it and you're listening to us and you think we are stupid as fuck, you can tell us. Or you can tell us that you think we had some decent insights or something. Or you can say, why the fuck am I listening to these people still? What the fuck is wrong with me? Who knows?
Yep.
But either way, we're going to wrap up because Chair has to go do some PvP shit, okay?
Yep.
He's got to go PvP in Star Wars Galaxies. So,
Yep.
but much
And I
love.
don't know. I need to watch this movie again before like I give deeper comment. Maybe we'll come back to it after we both maybe watched it a couple times and reread the book. Maybe we'll do like like we did Lord of the Rings, just kind of like a deeper dive. So
Yes. Did we ever
yeah.
deep dive Lord of the Rings, though?
I feel like we did a lot of we did a lot of the periphery stuff.
Yeah, we deep dived on fairy stories and
Mm.
in Leaf, something else. Mythopoeia we talked about. So yeah, but I don't know if we ever deep dived actual Lord of the Rings, but we could.
Yep.
So anyway, thank you everybody for watching, listening, wherever, however you are doing so. YouTube, Twitch, any podcast platform. Follow, like, subscribe, rate, review, click all the buttons. Much love, much appreciated. See you next time. Goodbye.
Yep.